I knew something was off the moment 2 patrol cars rolled into my driveway without sirens. The uniforms looked right at first glance: badges, radios, even body cams. But something about the way they carried themselves felt rehearsed, like actors who had studied police work from TV instead of real life. One of them stepped forward and told me I was being cited for noncompliance with mandatory HOA membership. I almost laughed. I had refused to join that HOA from day one because my property predated the entire neighborhood. I wasn't subject to their rules, fees, or made-up fines, and I had paperwork to prove it. Still, they insisted I had 30 days to comply or face legal consequences. That was my first clue: real cops don't threaten HOA enrollment. I asked them which department they were with. One hesitated. The other answered too quickly. Wrong city, wrong jurisdiction. I calmly told them they were on private property and needed to leave. That's when their tone changed. They started talking about obstruction, fines, and even arrest. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, exactly like the HOA wanted: public intimidation. What they didn't know was that I'd dealt with land disputes before. I walked back inside, pulled out a folder I keep for situations exactly like this, and returned with copies of my deed, survey maps, and a lease agreement dated years before the HOA even existed. When I showed them the documents, their confidence cracked. They didn't know what they were looking at, but they knew it wasn't good. I told them they were trespassing and impersonating officers, both serious offenses. That's when one of them muttered into his radio and suggested they check something. Instead of leaving, they stalled. I decided to push harder. I asked them if the HOA office was still located on the corner lot by the entrance sign. They nodded. Then I said the sentence that changed everything: "You know that building sits on my land, right?" Part 2. The silence that followed was loud. One of the fake cops laughed nervously, assuming I was bluffing. I wasn't. Years ago, I leased that parcel to a developer with very specific conditions. The land was never sold, only temporarily granted for use. When the HOA formed later, they inherited the building without ever checking ownership. I had sent notices. They ignored them. Now they were standing on my property trying to intimidate me into joining their club. I pulled out a second document and showed them the boundary survey. The HOA office, parking lot, and even the flagpole were inside my property lines. That's when they backed off. Fast. They suddenly remembered they had another call and left without another word. Within an hour, I contacted a real attorney and forwarded everything to the city. 2 days later, an actual code enforcement officer, not a fake one, visited the HOA office. The violations stacked up fast: unauthorized use of land, improper permits, and illegal representation of authority. The HOA board panicked. Emails started flooding my inbox, suddenly polite, suddenly apologetic. They asked for a meeting. I declined. A week later, the HOA office was shut down. Notices were posted. Members were furious. Not at me, but at the board that had lied to them and wasted their money on intimidation instead of legality. The fake cops. Turned out they were private security hired to look official. That didn't end well for them. As for the HOA, they quietly dissolved months later after lawsuits and resignations tore it apart. I still live on the same property. I still don't belong to any HOA. And every time I drive past that empty building, I'm reminded of one simple truth: never try to bully someone until you're absolutely sure whose land you're standing on.